Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over some severe storms which are going to be impacting parts of the south central and southeastern United States. We already have a slight risk out for tomorrow and for Sunday, and that's because of some humid air out ahead of this storm system, chillier air coming in from the north and drier air coming in from the west, and all of that coming together will enable some of these storms to really form. So we're going to take you hour by hour with this storm, and we're going to kind of time it out for you guys and give you all the information that you need to know for this event. So let's get right into it here, and let's start off with your current National Weather Service page. As you can see, we have a couple of freeze watches in effect for parts of Oregon, as well as some wind advisories in Southern California, Northern Nevada, Southern Idaho, and Eastern Montana. A few red flag warnings in effect for parts of the Rockies, as well as for the Northern Plains and parts of South Carolina and Georgia. Other than that, we don't have many other watches or warnings. We actually have a couple of freeze warnings up in the Smoky Mountains in West Virginia. But again, other than that, not many other watches or warnings currently in place. Yesterday, we had a high temperature in Death Valley, California, where they got up to 108 degrees Fahrenheit, with a low temperature in Peter Sinks, Utah, where they got down to 8 degrees Fahrenheit. The highest precipitation or rainfall report yesterday was in Carsonville, Pennsylvania, where they got 1.42 inches of rainfall, and there were no snowfall reports reported yesterday. So here's what the Storm Prediction Center page looks like, and this is going to be the forecast for tomorrow. As you can see, we do have that marginal risk in effect for the south central United States, and that is in parts of Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas. And then we have that slight risk, which is mainly just for areas in eastern Texas, in eastern Kansas actually, and that's going to be the main area that's going to be impacted tomorrow. And then if we look at Sunday, you can see that the whole risk area shifts to the south and east. So we have that marginal risk taking up much of the Tennessee Valley in the southeastern United States, and then that slight risk which goes from Missouri down through Arkansas and Louisiana all the way into parts of Texas. So that's what the Storm Prediction Center has for tomorrow. If we actually start looking at some of the models, we're going to look at the RGEM model because it'll be able to take us through the entirety of this event. We're going to start off with a low pressure up in Kansas. This is actually a fairly strong low pressure. We also have quite a bit of wind out ahead of this just because of how tight the pressure gradient is. We have a high pressure which is out to the east, and then we have that big low pressure which is out to the west, and because of that, we're going to be seeing a lot of wind right through this corridor in between parts of Kansas and about Alabama. In between there is where we're going to be dealing with quite a bit of wind, potentially gusting to 25 to 30 miles per hour at times. So that low pressure is to the north. We're also getting a lot of warm air to be funneled in from the Gulf of Mexico and parts of Mexico in general, and that's pushing up to the north, and because of that, we have a fairly ripe environment for these storms. We're actually going to have temperatures in the 90s as far north as Kansas for Sunday, or for Saturday actually. So really, really warm temperatures. So this would be for Saturday night. And now if we move this forward a little bit, here's by Sunday morning, and you can see that we have quite a bit of rainfall, especially up to the north, so parts of Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois. That's what we're dealing with, mostly just steady storms. We could be dealing with a couple of thunderstorms and potentially severe storms at times, but the most of the severe weather looks to actually stay further to the south, and you're going to start to see this develop in just a couple of moments. So that low pressure heads to the east, and you can see it's out here into Illinois and Indiana by Sunday early afternoon. We have some of that rain setting up along this line from Illinois down through into Texas. So we have some of that residual rain starting up in these areas. We also do have some of that colder air to the north, by the way. So we have temperatures that are in the 40s and the 50s, even some 30s into the higher elevations by Sunday afternoon in these areas. Meanwhile, we have very warm temperatures to the east of these storms. So a very dynamic sort of weather pattern around all of these storms. The low pressure has weakened a little bit, but the storms are just getting started. So you can see that this line of storms is going to set up from northeastern Texas, go through Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, into western Tennessee, and then potentially move up into Kentucky and maybe a little bit of Indiana and Ohio as well. Your low pressure by this point is through here. So this is where your low pressure is. We are starting to get another low pressure developing back here, but that one is not going to be too big of an issue for the areas further to the east. We have still all that warm air out ahead of this, and you can actually start to see a little bit of this storminess starting to pop up with some of those more brighter red colors showing up on the screen. So this is by Sunday in the afternoon and evening, and then here would be by late on Sunday, so right around 12 in the morning, so midnight Sunday night into Monday morning, and we're dealing with these storms heading further to the south, now heading into the southeast. So four parts of northern Louisiana, Mississippi, northern Alabama, all those areas could potentially be seeing storms according to the regional Canadian model by very early on Monday, and then the storms break up sometime between then and Monday around 6 or 7 in the morning. That's when the storms are going to break up. We still do have a couple of more severe bands, but definitely nothing to the severity of what you were seeing to the north. Here's the Cape values, the convective available potential energy, and these are actually going to be quite high for these regions. So we're dealing with Cape values over 1,000 throughout this area in the Central Plains. So that is definitely enough to support some storms. This would be for Saturday night, and then here's the Cape values as we head into Sunday in the early afternoon, and you can see that we actually have Cape values between 1,000 and 2,500 through these areas. That goes from the Mississippi River Valley all the way down into eastern and southern Texas. All of those areas have sufficient amounts of energy in the atmosphere that would definitely be enough to support a thunderstorm developing in those areas. If we look at the temperatures, these are also going to be very, very warm. First thing that I notice is how warm these temperatures are going to be in parts of the southern plains. We're dealing with in that grayish, whitish color. That's where we're dealing with temperatures above 90 degrees. And even if you're just in that dark red, the first shade of dark red is where you're above 80, and then in that more the darker red is where we're above 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So all of that is very, very warm, even into parts of the southeast. And then we have that cold air just to the north. So in neighboring Nebraska, that's where we're dealing with some of those chillier temperatures. And especially through the Dakotas, this is where we have some of those chillier temperatures with high temperatures that are only going to be making its way into the 40s and 50s through those areas. So that's where we're dealing with the chillier temperatures. But to the south, we have a nice warm air mass in place. If we look, that would be for Sunday. Those are the high temperatures on Sunday. Here's for Sunday. That would be for Saturday. Here's for Sunday. And you can see that the warmer temperatures now transitioning a little bit further into the southeast. So these areas now are where you're getting the warmest of those temperatures, especially for areas like Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee. All of those areas that are going to be impacted with the storms have some rather warm temperatures out ahead of the storms, and that, again, that is just going to be fueling the severe weather event. If we look at the dew points, these are also going to be quite high. So you can see that by Sunday in the early afternoon, we have dew points that are already getting up into the 60s for many of these areas. So we have dew points even approaching 70 in some of these areas, and this is a warm sector of the storm. You can tell that we have your low pressure somewhere between here, and because of that, we have that cold front to the west, and that's also your dry line. So we have a little bit of drier weather out west of there, and then we have your warm front to the north. So all of this is warm, moist air that's going to be fueling these storms. So all of that warm, moist air really going to help these storms kind of continue to work and kind of energize over these areas. Here would be the wind shear values. So we're dealing with wind shear values that are also going to be quite high, especially through the Central Plains. We have winds coming out of the west in the upper atmosphere, and because of that, if you look at the low-level winds, they're coming out of the south. So we do have a little bit of wind shear over these areas, especially through these areas right here. So it's not going to completely overlay with the storms, but we could potentially see a little bit of hail or tornado activity in some isolated areas if this were to actually play out how this model is showing it. And if we look at the wind gusts, you're seeing that we have max maximum wind gusts really centering over the Tennessee Valley, where we have potentially winds gusting up to 45 to 55 miles per hour. So really, really windy conditions as we get that pressure gradient to shift from the southern plains into the Tennessee Valley. If we go to the next frame here, you can see that we actually do have, again, some of those very, very windy conditions over the Tennessee Valley. These are going to be winds mainly just produced because we have the high pressure in the southeast and that low pressure, which is going to be centered over Indiana and Illinois. And because of that, we are going to be, again, dealing with that strong pressure gradient, bringing in some very, very gusty winds. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.